expired. I call Senator O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I intend to make my contribution today for Senator statements relating to, as I've done in the past, relating to the circumstances surrounding agriculture and primary production, not just in my home state of Queensland, but additionally large tracts of Western New South Wales that remain under the serious burden of drought. And I've made contributions in this place now over the last 18 months with a consistent theme that our government, our Commonwealth Government, and it doesn't really matter who's in the chair, needs to continually review and establish what is required for us to keep a very strong agricultural and primary production sector at a time when I think we are witnessing a transition from the resource economy of this nation to a soft commodities economy. In the words of a colleague, an old economy returning. What we've seen, and I've spoken about in this place, is that the impacts of this once-in-100-year drought, along with, and not being political, but along with the decision of the federal government that impinged upon the live export of cattle into Indonesia in 2011, and things like the high dollar and the ongoing low farm gate profitability of many enterprises, and particularly in the areas that are affected by drought, broadacre, large-scale grass-fed cattle operations. These things have not only now impacted on the pastoralists and those family enterprises, but the insidious impacts of these collections of challenges have now made themselves their way into the communities in those areas. About a quarter, if not larger, percentage of my state is now destocked or has very light stocking rates, and we all know that rain, if it were to come tomorrow, is of little use. In fact, could create greater concerns if we have rain and frosts in some of these areas. The last tiny bit of herbage that's there will be frozen off. So the beneficial rains will come in the spring or summer if God's willing, because at the moment not only do we have no pasture as a result of the drought, but all of our surface waters are gone. I can report to the Senate through you, Madam Deputy President, that I recently, on a trip to Longreach, spent about the last 30 minutes of the flight from probably southeast of Blackall through to Longreach, looking out the window of the plane, and I was unable to see any evidence of surface water anywhere within the parameters of that view. So these are very, very, very serious circumstances for those parts of my state and New South Wales, and for the industries and sectors, and now significantly the communities that support them. It's a matter of public record that I raised this issue in the joint party room of our coalition, asking colleagues around the country to consider what they might do if these circumstances presented in their electorates. For example, I asked if the biggest industry in their electorate had come to an end and it had no stock left on the shelves, had no employees, and was under threat of defaulting on loans arrangements, what would they do if everybody in their electorate were in those circumstances? I asked what would they do when it impacted on those other tertiary businesses in their electorate, such as their newsagents and their hotels and motels and a range of those things. And not that everyone in this place and the other place wasn't sympathetic, and not that they didn't have some knowledge of the circumstances confronting these sectors and these communities and these regions. But I do think that the presentation, along with contributions by other members of the House of Representatives and other senators, did resonate with many of the members of our government, and of course what's happened in the ensuing 5 or 6 weeks has been that our government has responded. And part of what I wanted to do today was to recognise that response. It's not often that you can mobilise the interests of this Parliament measured in weeks. Typically, these things are long haul, but I think everyone understood the critical nature of the challenge, given we didn't have summer and spring rains in 14-15, and many of these pastoralists are now years away from recovery. Even if there were rain this spring and summer, it'll be late 2017, early 2018 before we'll see a cash flow return to these districts, and then of course that will have the flow-on effect in these communities. So accordingly, the Prime Minister, Mr Abbott, took a personal interest in this, and along with the Deputy PM and the Agricultural Minister, and I imagine a number of other Cabinet colleagues supporting them through the ERC process, developed a new package of new money for $83 million to allow us to pump into about 12 shires and to benefit the communities within those shires. The conditions of this funding has to do with the money being spent on local labour, supporting local contractors, and any goods and services are to be bought locally. For example, Madam Acting Deputy Speaker, the seriousness.
President Senator O'Sullivan over on this side of the world. I think it's the President, not the.
Sorry, President. My thoughts are in what I wanted to say, and I apologise for that. Is the fact that the Longreach Primary School had a loss of students, a very stable community, Longreach, had a loss of students of about 33% in the last 14 months. That meant 1/3 of the students and their parents and carers and whoever it is makes up their family unit had migrated out of the community because they no longer had work or circumstances that presented that were directly relevant to this. So this package, which is not the end of it, it's an interim package of $35 million for shovel-ready local infrastructure employment projects, is going to give a terrific boost. Additionally, the Prime Minister approved $25+ million for programs to manage pest animals and weeds through the affected areas, because there's an absolute explosion of the impact of that feral dogs are having on weakened stock, as well as we've had a complete explosion in the kangaroo population, despite some of my colleagues in the Greens who argue that they're on the cusp of extinction. Current figures show there's about 36 million kangaroos in the population in Queensland, and they are just eating any available herbage or grass that would otherwise be competed for. It'll be competed for with these drought-affected stock. Importantly, there was $20 million to expand existing social and community support programs. So this is directly putting money. It'll increase. There'll be another 10 councillors. Also funded with a $1.8 million additional rural financial councillors fund. So all in all, in the time I have, Madam Acting Deputy President, I want to congratulate the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister and the Agricultural Minister, and I know that initiatives like this are supported by colleagues opposite in the House of Representatives. Whilst there's been some criticism, generally I think initiatives such as this are well supported, and I urge my colleagues right throughout this Parliament to continue to monitor the circumstances of our fellow Australians in these very, very difficult circumstances, and we should, as and when possible, support each other in the development of initiatives that will respond to their circumstances. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.